Hello.
Hello.
I'm Ron.
I'm David. This is Scorpio.
Back by popular demand. She is, however, more interested in chasing flowers. So we will let her down. Okay. So we're here to talk today about 4 topics. First is cleansing, healing. Second is charging. Third is tuning. And fourth is aftercare. With the cleansing, healing, this is really the place where we start in all work with stones, or really any object that we're working with. And it is connecting with the essential meaning of the stone itself. And why don't you describe your process for that?
Okay. It sounds maybe a little bit more mysterious than it actually is. How do you connect with the essential meaning of something? But really, it's about a journey that you make with all of your senses being focused on it in a very relaxed way. There's no force involved. You simply take in what you are experiencing on all levels, what you're feeling, what you're thinking, and all of the input that the object is giving you. And if you do that for long enough, I think everybody will have an experience very similar to what I'm about to describe that they can relate to. That it's almost as if the object begins to grow and it fills your entire awareness. Think of a time when you've been maybe watching a tiny little film on a little like phone screen, and you become so engrossed in the film that you have no idea what's going on like all around you. Well, this is very similar. You focus very gently, in a very relaxed way upon the object, and eventually it fills your entire awareness, which is the same thing as saying that it fills the entire universe, your universe. And there's you and the object, in this case the stone, in the center of this awareness, in the center of this universe, and that's all there is. You're not thinking, you're not responding, you're not analyzing, you're not doing a dance with it or any of those things in your mind. You're simply just being with whatever it is that you're being with. And it's this state of being that really communicates the essential meaning to you, between you. It becomes clear. However, it doesn't happen in that state of awareness where you are just being, where you are transferred into the Akasha with this object. It happens afterwards as you begin to separate again. Then that's when you begin to perceive with your mind and with words and with thoughts all of those things that you have experienced as part of the essential meaning. And that's really what we're talking about here, is that when the stone comes into your possession, simply sit with it.
It's a very passive but active openness, I would say. You're completely receptive and perceptive. But, like Dave says, it's not this Podian naming, labeling, giving all these words to it at that stage. That comes after.
Yeah. You must resist that. If you have a tendency to do that in these moments, resist that by just telling yourself that now is not the time to analyze the experience. Now is the time to experience the experience, and to analyze the experience afterwards.
So that's where we begin. We begin with this opening, this allowing of the stone to communicate its experience to us. This alone, this connection with the stone by a human being is often enough. It's often all that a stone will need, is to just be recognized and communicated with. All of the natural world responds in this way to a human being who is taking the time and the sensitivity to recognize and perceive, and in that way communicate with nature.
Mm.
So this is the beginning place, and in that process, we learn things from the stone, and the stone, of course, learns things about us as well. We learn about its journey, its interaction with human beings, if it's had any, its experience in the world, and we learn what it is capable of, what it is not capable of, what it prefers, what it doesn't prefer, and it's from that we then go on to the next step of what does this stone need to be able to more fully express its pure essential meaning, as opposed to an essential meaning that we have given it, a significance that we have given it. For example, you want to talk about this little guy?
Sure. Yeah. This is a fluorite that has been polished and turned into a smooth oval shape. It's quite nice to hold in the human hand. And what I wanted to talk to you about this is how what we have done to this stone, how we have shaped it, has led to it needing a specific kind of healing. And for me, the clarity of that healing, that is the most important thing that I can do in my relationship with stones, full stop. Although this is the first step, for me it is the most important one, and the most personally important one, because that's just where my heart lies with them, wanting to heal them. And this stone has been shaped into a nice, comfortable shape, and it has, I don't know if you can see that on the camera, it's got a kind of faint green end and a kind of faint purple end. It's quite translucent. And this stone has been given specific analogies by human beings shaping it. It could have been a spear as well, for example. It could have been shaped into a rod or some other shape, but it's been given this specific analogy or set of analogies. The green, for example, for human beings is analogous to grass, as I spoke about previously, and therefore to plants and all of the things of nature. The purple is analogous to sort of royalty and imperialism, among other things. And so those analogies have been used to give this particular piece of fluorite a form that expresses its essential meaning in a certain way. And it's that shaping by giving analogy to the stone, by the human giving of analogy to the stone. It's that healing that you have to address first, in my view, because the analogies that we have given these things are not healthy ones a lot of the time.
You can find the essential meaning,
right,
the natural essential meaning.
And it's very different to, say, a rock that you would find in a creek or just in the forest, lying around on the ground that hasn't been shaped by human hands. The essential meaning of that stone, that being, that mineral familiar, is expressing itself naturally, the way that nature has shaped it, the way that it shaped itself through its environment. This one has fallen into our clutches, and we have given it these analogies. It's been confined by them. But it's also been given a sharper definition, more individuality in a sense. But you still have to open that essential meaning back up, because what we've done with that, with the essential meaning of fluorite there, is we've focused it in and narrowed it down into this specific symbolic expression. So the healing that you have to bring to the stone is to open that essential meaning back out by perceiving the analogies that are present within it. The green leading to the grass leading to the plants to nature, and all of these analogies serve to sort of reopen the essential meaning of the stone the more you follow them. However, you get to a point in following all of these analogies when you reach critical mass, and the analogies just stop, and it becomes analogous to everything. It becomes analogous to unity, and you begin to see then in the stone the essential meaning that has been hidden in the form, folded and tucked away inside the form. This stone, the labradorite, was one of those that taught me this about analogies being used in the healing process to reopen the essential meaning within stones that have been shaped, because it had one side that was not shaped and one side that was very clearly shaped, and I learned this from investigating this border between the two. There was a different need expressed there.
Having connected with the stone and gone through this process of really communicating with it and understanding it and helping it heal, basically, this process brings out the true essential meaning of the stone. And it also brings to the surface what our relationship with this stone is going to be. Some stones we're going to want to use in the sense of as part of a magical tool or in some sort of magical way. Okay? An example of that for me, one I use a lot, is quartz crystal, and this is a double terminated clear quartz crystal. So having connected with this crystal, the next step is going to be cleansing. This crystal, this quartz crystal especially, has resonated with everything that it has experienced, and it is all stored up in its crystalline structure here, physically, astrally, and mentally. So I need to basically reset that structure back to its pristine essential meaning, as opposed to everything that it has taken on by its nature. Okay? So how most recommendations are either place it in the sunlight, place it in some salt, or run it through some cold water, or smudge it, for example. Depending on how you do these things, you can either just be adding more stuff to the crystal, or you can actually be cleansing it. By setting this in the sunlight, what's primarily going to happen is it's going to be filled with, it's going to resonate with the sunlight. It's going to resonate with whatever else is going on at the moment. So it's really just going to fill it with something else. Unless, with my mind, my imagination, my creative imagination, I am directing that sunlight to completely clear this crystal. I am instructing the crystal to release everything in response to the sunlight. Then it works. Otherwise, it's not really a very effective method, especially since this crystal doesn't belong in sunlight. You know, it's sort of a foreign substance to it. Salt and crystals, they don't get along very well. It's sort of this abrasive relationship. And salt itself is just full. The crystalline structure of salt holds just so much stuff. Yeah. So many toxins, you know, astromental and physical toxins that this transfers to the crystal. So again, it's just replacing one thing with another in the crystal. I can, with my mind, direct the salt to take from the crystal what I don't want the crystal to be holding, but it's not a very efficient and it's not as effective.
It's not very kind to the soul.
No, or to the crystal, because it's sort of this antagonistic relationship. Running it under tap water. Again, tap water contains so much human stuff that this is by itself not really very effective. But cold water especially, I can use my mind to accentuate the magnetism of the cold water so that it draws certain things out of the stone or the quartz crystal. If you are in a alpine stream near its source, and it's all bubbling and fresh and completely imbued with nature, you drop. Well, yeah. You put this quartz crystal in that stream, and it will automatically clear. And this is nature just doing what it does automatically. But it's a much different astromental substance than tap water.
Yeah, it wouldn't quite work at the River Thames, though.
No, it wouldn't. It would need cleaning afterwards. So, smudging. This, since smudging is primarily astromental to begin with, this works really fairly well. And the quartz likes smudge. A nice native sage smudge works well. But again, it requires your astromental input to direct the flow of what is happening, to cause the smudge to cleanse the quartz. Okay. My preferred method, the one that I use exclusively, is I fill this with the Ketheric brilliance. And the Ketheric brilliance is composed of all essential meaning. So it resonates, within the Ketheric brilliance, the essential meaning of this crystal resonates with this crystal, and it amplifies the pure essential meaning of whatever thing you are working with. And amplifies it and brings it out, and it overrides and excretes, as it were, anything foreign to that essential meaning. And it is very simple if you work with the Ketheric brilliance to, concentrate the Ketheric brilliance within whatever you're working with.
So basically a white but colorless light.
Yeah, a white light is very closely related to Ketheric brilliance, and is also quite useful in this, but again, it really takes this intention on your part. Whatever you're using, it takes an intention for cleansing. With the Ketheric brilliance, it's like that stream, the alpine stream. It just, nature takes over, and this is the result, as opposed to I'm directing it to happen. So the next step, the second step then, is to cleanse whatever stone you are going to work with in a way that's appropriate to the stone. Yeah. Some stones dissolve in water, so you don't want to use water.
Trust your feelings, and in the opening that you do with the stone, reaching out to its essential meaning. Trust that that sense that you have of things afterwards. Sometimes the stones will want to be carried in your pocket for a while.
Sometimes they'll just want to be brushed with some soap and water and cleaned up and oiled.
Sometimes they'll suggest being taken to a specific place. Because nature has all these amazing healing things going on, not just alpine streams, but all kinds of places. Yeah. And the stones will know from the contact with you where you've been. So he'll tell you,
I want to go there.
Take you there. And
follow that.
Just follow it.
Follow it. So the next topic is charging of stones. Now this is
kind of a misnomer.
Yeah. Some stones don't hold a charge. The stones that tend to hold charges are the crystalline minerals. If it's not a crystal, generally it won't hold a charge. Not any kind of energetic charge, at any rate. It will hold an idea or a feeling, but not astrophysical energy. Some stones don't like certain charges. Some stones say, I've cracked stones before, putting the wrong kind of charge in. And that's because, I hadn't gone through this initial process of actually connecting with it. So the stone, your interaction with the stone will inform you of what it is capable or desirous of doing. What I have charged the most, of course, are quartz crystals. These days, I very seldom actually charge quartz crystal. I mostly tune it and use it for the flow. But a charge it's like a battery. You top it up and then it depletes. And then you top it up some more and it depletes. And it's a process. I see in my practice there are two basic techniques for charging. One is projective. I am projecting energy into this crystal. And with my creative imagination, I'm holding the energy inside the crystal. Because with the double terminated quartz crystal, it doesn't necessarily want to hold a charge at all. It really wants to express that charge, right? It wants to say, whoosh, okay. So it takes instruction, basically, to hold that charge within the crystal. And another stone that doesn't have this particular structure, it's really easy to just dump energy into it and it stays there, sits there, doesn't do anything. But with a double terminated crystal, you've got to keep it there. So there's the projective method, where I am projecting an energy. The other method is about resonance. And I don't necessarily have to hold a crystal for the resonance. But it begins with my resonating with the essential meaning of this crystal. It's just a very slight shift where I am now I'm not causing it to resonate with me. I am choosing to resonate with it. And then I shift my state. I shift my state to whatever it is I want to accumulate, whatever charge I want within the crystal. And it works best with ideas and emotions, more so than astrophysical energies this way. It's possible with the astrophysical energies too, it's just not as great a method. So I evoke the idea or feeling within myself and amplify that until I am vibrating with that idea or feeling. And the crystal, just because of what it is, begins to resonate as well. Right, it just starts resonating that way. So again, with this crystal, I have to also hold that building charge within the structure of the crystal, within the body of the crystal, with my creative imagination. Otherwise, it just projects out. So I resonate. I build this vibration that the crystal begins to resonate with, and I keep it going. And that it builds, that energy, that idea, that emotion builds and builds and builds within the crystal as I cause it to resonate and hold on to it. So those are the two methods that I work with.
Yeah, those are methods that I basically used as well. Another method that I've used is I will transfer myself into the akasha of the stone in the way that I just described by just focusing my awareness on it until it fills my awareness and it and I are essentially one. And from that place, in that place, I will begin to consider the crystal in its natural environment. When we're talking about a charge, where does a crystal get its charge from in nature?
Mm-hmm.
It gets it from being in the cluster, in the bedrock, with the energy force of the earth moving through it. So it's very much to do with connecting this individual crystal or stone with its brothers and sisters, its collective family of its other fluorite, its other quartz crystals, other amethysts, everywhere in the world, and allowing that relationship it's a healing relationship for the stone because it's been taken away, allowing that relationship to be the charging, the pulse of that relationship, reconnecting with all of those brothers and sisters is what charges the stone. And I find that a very effective method with every stone that I've used. And they all really welcome that contact with the other parts of themselves, and that really energizes them, charges them.
So the charge you're achieving there is the essential meaning itself being amplified
By
it's sort of taking it to its depth point, really.
Exactly.
Right. You can also charge like this quartz crystal by putting it in the sunlight, and it will be charged with sunlight. But again, it would require an instrumental instruction with your creative imagination for it to stay, the sunlight to stay and to build. You can put it in moonlight and have a moon-charged crystal as well. You can put it in different environments and have it charged by whatever environment. It just requires that instruction that it build and that it stay. Next up is tuning crystals. This is very much what I do for a living, actually, is tune crystals. So we'll talk about two basic methods. I use a very direct, immediate, permanent technique with quartz crystal, and David will describe a longer-term experiential technique that suits astrological tuning just perfectly. So, when I tune a quartz sphere, this is different than charging. A tuning is not a battery that is topped up and depletes and topped up and depletes. Tuning for me is a one-time operation that permanently alters the mental, astral, and physical structure of the quartz, down to a molecular level, basically. My method is really quite simple, and it involves the Catholic brilliance. I project the Catholic brilliance into the piece of the quartz. It is now filled with the Catholic brilliance, and I'm holding it there. It's not exiting the quartz. Then I project my own awareness into that Catholic brilliance that permeates this quartz, and I feel I become the quartz. It becomes my body, as it were. Then I shift my awareness to whatever it is I want to tune this quartz crystal to. For example, most of my tuning is Sephirotic, so I will shift my awareness to Tiferet, not just at my personal Tiferet, but the universal Tiferet as well. And I will, through that shift of my awareness into Tiferet, the Catholic brilliance will naturally resonate and amplify that Tiferet state of awareness throughout the body of the quartz crystal. I intensify that. I explore Tiferet each time it's an experience of the Sephirotic state itself. And each time I do this, I see something new, something more. So it's this always expanding, always interactive process. When I reach a certain point, and it's just through experience that you know when this point is, the whole structure of this specific crystal shifts to where now it is tuned at every level, mental, astral, and physical, permanently changed. It is now a Tiferet crystal. It resonates with Tiferet. It accepts no other resonation than Tiferet. It cannot resonate with anything except Tiferet. That's the best explanation I can give of it. I call it a form of emulation magic, and it involves the projection and the use of the Ketheric brilliance, projection of awareness, and the shifting of a state of awareness. And this permanently alters the quartz.
This is why you use quartz as well.
Exactly, because it is perfect for this. It will accept pretty much any tuning and hold it permanently. For the remaining life of this crystalline structure, even if this is pulverized, the little bits of the crystal are still Tiferet. It is that permanent.
Yeah.
It's not a charge. This is very different than a charge. This is the mechanism, I call it, of a radiator, the newest one. And this is it will be an example. It has not been tuned. Otherwise, I wouldn't be showing it to you on camera. With this, I'm not sure you can really see, but there is a crystal sphere, clear quartz crystal sphere in the center, and 10 double-terminated quartz crystals all pointing in and making contact with that central sphere. What I do is I tune each one of these quartz crystals separately to a Sephirotic state. This is Kether, here is Chokmah, and Bina, and Tiferet, and Gedula, and on the underside, here we have Gebura, Yesod, Netzach, Hod, and Malkuth. So each of these will be tuned in succession, starting with Kether, then Chokmah, then Bina, in the Gra tree sequence. And as I'm tuning each one of these individually in sequence, the others actually start to adopt their own specific appropriate tuning as a consequence. By the time I'm down to, say, Netzach down here, Hod is already pretty much fully tuned, and Malkuth is already sitting there waiting. So it's just reaffirming, you know. But that's because of the nature of the structure and the type of tuning. Kether contains all the rest. You know, Chokmah contains all the rest, Bina, etc. So it is cumulative. And then that quartz sphere in the center, I tune to the Ketheric brilliance itself. And the result is a radiator. You have all 10 Sephirotic states, which combined are the Ketheric brilliance, all in contact with this radiant sphere, which is radiating the Ketheric brilliance as well. So it feeds the sphere through these 10 Sephirotic states with the Ketheric brilliance, and the Ketheric brilliance radiates from this sphere through these crystals. So it's all amplifying and generating the Ketheric brilliance once it's tuned. At the moment, Well, I've got it really dampened. I have to dampen these as I'm making them because we'd be going crazy here all the time. Because if I undampen this, what it does is it starts taking in all the ambient energy in the room, and it all feeds into this sphere in the center, builds up, and starts to radiate in amplified fashion. So it can be really overpowering in its raw state. In its tuned state, it's quite different. It can be overpowering as well, but these later ones are not.
Ones,
yeah.
The larger ones that we make use of in our work that can give you a physical sensation on the skin in the room if left there to charge long enough.
So that's how I tune quartz.
Great. Very good. My method of tuning quartz has come from my relationship with astrology and my exploration, my journey, exploring the essential meaning of planets, signs, and so on. And it came about largely because I had also been carrying a quartz crystal in my pocket, and I was taking this quartz crystal out every now and again during a particularly crazy time in my life, when I was actually having a large number of really intense astrological transits and things happening to me. And I was taking this crystal out, holding it in my hand, and just being with this crystal, and it was reclaiming me from all of this stuff. It was taking me on a journey and bringing me back to myself. But eventually, all of that stuff stopped. All of the stuff I was experiencing just went away, like everything does in the end. And but for the quartz crystal, it stayed. And from that point on, it was always resonating with that time in my life, those experiences, those feelings, those thoughts. And that's when I realized that astrological effects can be, imparted to stones, to quartz in particular, and that it can happen when you don't want it to, and because they're really that resonant with everything that happens around you. And so my method is basically an evolution of that mistake. It is very simple. If you know anything about astrology, it's very simple. If you're having an astrological influence that you can recognize, and that you can see a benefit or use for in life, for having a particular mineral familiar around you who resonates with that influence. I'll give you an example to be clearer. Say, for example, you're feeling very Jupiter at this time and very expansive and buoyant, and you want to have a relationship or develop a relationship with a mineral being that has those qualities for you at all times. Then it's simply a matter of being with your stone when you feel that, in the way that we've talked about before, just holding the stone in your hand and sharing that with the stone, focusing on the stone's physical body is very important in this, I think, so that it binds it to the body. But through repetition, at the right time, in the right place, when you're feeling these things, it eventually takes. But you can plan that more as well from things like the rising of planets, the rising of the sun in the morning, for example. Is a better way, I think, to charge a crystal to solar energy than leaving it out in the open for however long you're going to do it, where it's going to absorb everything that's happening. Just taking the stone or the quartz in your hand at sunrise and being with it at sunrise and thinking of sunrise with it, and then doing that every day. And in between that time, of course, you've got to shield it in some way from everything else that would it would be, you know, tuning itself to at that time. So this is where things like silk and other things become important. But after a while, for repetition, the stone will just resonate with what you're connecting with, and then it will hold it. But then you've got this issue of the relationship with the stone. It's now become set. It's now become fixed for you and for the stone, and you have to always go into that kind of situation like you would in your relationship. You know, this is not something that you can thrust on your stone. It is a request that you have to make, and if you are in any doubt, then the answer is no. Another tuning I think that's very important for stones that I found from astrology is basically with the stars. They enjoy being out at night, being left out there at night and just kind of letting the sky pass over them. But it has to be a very nice place for them.
Balcony out here would not work very well.
Yeah. It might even be wise to sort of build special places for your stones to be in these cases. But the overall effect of that is that the stars kind of tune the stone to a very kind of open, expansive state of awareness. That's why we try to build certain circles with stones that were aligned to certain stars. They like stars.
Yeah. So what you're describing is basically this repeated exposure.
Right.
It's planned, intentional exposure.
Yeah. If Mars is rising, then now is the time for you to pick the stone up and think about Mars, and then put it back and do it again the next day Mars is rising. But always keep it secluded and shielded in between, so that it actually gets used to what you want to get used to and nothing else.
So now we want to talk about caring for your stone that you've charged or tuned or simply existing with and have as a friend. And there's several parts to this. One has to do with the care of the magical tool, as it were. So with this crystal that is tuned to Tiferet, it requires and it deserves a certain treatment, a certain respectfulness for what it is, and this interaction that we have, this relationship that we have, needs to be cared for. One way to do this is to wrap it in silk. This is a common thing to do, and bring it back out when this special relationship is once again in play. Otherwise, it rests, separated from the influences of the environment.
Silk is good for this because it's organic, and because energy which is coming in, it may diffuse over the surface of the silk. It's prevented from entering by being sort of scattered across.
Right. Yes. I prefer, even more than silk, to create an astramental shield for a stone. For me, this is more reliable than silk. Silk, certain things can be projected through silk. It definitely takes a lot of intention. But an astramental shield, again, using the creative imagination, simply see it as completely blocked from any interaction with its environment. This just takes practice. So silk is definitely handy until you are able to project that kind of a shield. So that's one aspect. Some stones prefer darkness, some the light. So again, it's this, your relationship with this stone will inform you of what it really needs.
Those that like darkness, it's good to keep them in boxes, but don't keep them in boxes with bunches of other stones. You give them a box of their own.
Yeah, something special and unique. This stone, for example, which I brought up before, the ancestor stone I told you about, it likes to be oiled, and it likes specifically human oil from the face. It likes to be oiled and polished as part of its...
You can see that, it's so shiny. You can see the oil of just countless numbers of people.
Yeah, we've all been doing this with it for, and then a little bit of this, and it gets a nice shine. This is part of its care. It doesn't like to be in silk. It doesn't need to be in silk. Another aspect of care is, this is, again, a long-term relationship that has just established with this, and how, participated in this. And so there's a responsibility here. It's like creating an elemental or an elementary. We don't just abandon them. We have a responsibility for this life form that we are participating with. So, at some point, this crystal is going to go to somebody and be handed over and say, here, this is a Tiferet crystal. Treat it in this way. And if you don't want, if there is nobody to hand this over to, then I have to release this crystal at some point from this, the obligations, this mutual obligation that we have established. And that's unique with each stone. There's no hard and fast rules with that. But it has to be attended to, just like you don't abandon the elemental.
Right. And with the tuning, say for example an astrological tuning, if I'm tuning a quartz crystal to the lunar sphere, to the moon, that commitment to that relation, that's a commitment to the relationship, and that commitment to the relationship means that I have to continue to explore with my crystal the moon. I have to take it out, show it the moon. We have to think about the moon. We have to feel the moon. We have to be moon together. We have to do all those things that relationship calls for me to be. And it's no good for me just to tune this thing to the moon, and then, well, now I've got a handy little bit of the moon here in my pocket. I can use it whenever I like and have that relationship with it. That's not good aftercare.
Right.
And there may come a time with some of the things that you do with stones when the objective that you had in mind together with the stone reaches its natural end, or you no longer want to do that, and then you have the question of what is the proper way for you to pass this stone onto its next phase in life. Some stones want to be just thrown into the sea, or thrown into a river, or buried out in the ground. Some will want to be passed on to somebody, and hopefully by then your relationship with the stone will be so rich that you will know.
Yeah, exactly. It's like with this stone, the ancestor stone. I know that I have two choices before I die: is to either pass this on to the next person, or take it back to the river and return it to the river. And that's a commitment that I have made in having this relationship with this stone.
But it's also the stone's choice.
Yeah.
It's this or it's this.
Yes. Yeah. So I think that covers our whole Next week, we will be talking about sort of a miscellaneous grouping of things. We'll talk about how shaping of stones affects the stone, positively, negatively, whichever. We'll talk about combining stones and metals, which I do a lot in my work, and also the geometric placement of stones and the effects that this can have, such as the radiator.
Yeah, it's basically what happens when stones meet humans.
Yeah.
And how that affects them, how the interaction of humans. It can be both, has good and bad aspects.
Right. And soon we will do a video of answering some questions from the Facebook page.
Yeah. We're collecting the questions together, and everyone's will get answered.
Yes. One way or another.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you. Bye-bye.